Trump's State of the Union speech, as expected, applauded on the right, lambasted on the left, and has left a trail of memes on social media and copious amounts of fact-checking in its wake, and also questions about two issues that went unmentioned: climate change and the shutdown. Here's a reminder.
But we must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good. Together, we can break decades of political stalemate. We can bridge old divisions, heal old wounds, build new coalitions, forge new solutions, and unlock the extraordinary promise of America's future.
And joining me now to break it all down is Executive Director of the Lawfare Project, Brooke Goldstein, and Democratic strategist Jim Manley. It is great to see you both. Thanks for coming on the Spin Room. Brooke, I want to start with you about how this thing was received by the public. According to a CBS poll, 76% liked it, 24% didn't. So those are pretty good numbers, aren't they?
Yes, 76%, I think, is a quite resounding show of support. I think this was one of the president's best speech. He started off strong, and he ended equally as strong. He started off saying that this is a moment of unlimited potential, and he reminded us in the end that we have the opportunity right now to choose our destiny. And what was particularly moving to me as a child, a grandchild of Holocaust survivors, was his recognition of both the heroes at D-Day, the American heroes who rescued Europe and rescued the Jewish community from absolute genocide, as well as the victims of the Holocaust. He called out anti-Semitism worldwide. He called out Islamist genocide. He reaffirmed his commitment that Jerusalem shall and will always remain the capital of the Jewish people in the eyes of America as well. So to me, it was such a strong speech. And I also think what was very important, I think what resonated with the public, was his emphasis on his economic accomplishments. Everybody says, you know, it's the economy. That's the most important thing that's going to determine whether or not the president is reelected. And the numbers are outstanding. 3.7% unemployment rate. It is unprecedented in the last 20 years. All right,
I want to get Jim's take. What do you think, Jim? What do you make of the president's attempts at a, shall I say, a more conciliatory tone?
Well, at the risk of stating the obvious, I didn't think much of the speech, and I didn't think much of his so-called attempt to try and find a bridge toward compromise. After all, less than 24 hours later after the speech, the president's on Twitter this morning attacking Democrats, accusing them of presidential harassment for their vow to investigate his financial dealings with the Russians. Again, I saw, like Brooke, I saw some inspirational parts, but I also saw it jam-packed with the type of harsh rhetoric, especially when it comes to immigration, that we've come to expect from this guy. This was no pivot for the president. He didn't reset the debate in any form or fashion. We're now back to dealing once again to, how to fund the government come February 15th, and he's done nothing at all, period, end of story, to try and advance the ball after this speech.
Okay, so you mentioned the investigations. Let's talk about that. One of the most controversial moments was when Trump warned that the only thing that can stop the country from flourishing would be, quote, foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. Let's have a listen.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. There is going to be peace and legislation. There cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way.
Brooke, what do you think? It almost sounds like a threat.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a statement of the obvious. I mean, I think, with all due respect to Jim, we're kind of missing the point of the State of the Union. The point is not to appeal to the Democratic members of Congress who have tried to frustrate Trump's agenda. on every level, at every opportunity. The point is to appeal to the American public for support and influence that they should pressure members of Congress to work together with him on platforms that would normally be considered very liberal platforms. Back in 2006, almost every single Democrat member of Congress voted for a security fence. Now they have flopped on issues of national security just because Trump is president. He talked about criminal justice reform. This is a traditional liberal platform that he has been extraordinarily successful with. He talked about family paid leave. The entire a mother and a father should spend time with their newborn child. These are traditional liberal platforms, and I think that really does appeal to a broad base of the American public.
Jim, why do you think he didn't discuss the shutdown or climate change?
Not really within his wheelhouse, if you will. Let's just say, while Brooke is right, he did hit on some of these issues that could appeal to Democrats. It was not exactly a speech chock full of policy prescriptions. He talked a lot about a different some visions, but didn't really get into the details. But you asked a good question. Why didn't he talk about the shutdown? Because he doesn't have the faintest idea how to get out of it. And at least for right now, he has listened to the House and Senate leaders who are asking him to stay out of it while they try and cut a deal. And by the way, based on my phone calls this morning to get ready for the show, it looks like there is going to be a deal by tomorrow. And the question is whether the president's actually going to sign it or not. All right.
Well, let's talk about what was going on in the room. There was a lot said about how Democrats were reacting. There was the Pelosi clap and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her sullen face, and a lot more. And here's a reaction to that from Liz Cheney. She tweeted, "Things my Democrat women colleagues wouldn't clap for at State of the Union: America, freedom, free enterprise, law enforcement, heroes, record low unemployment for women and minorities, the right of babies to live, and things that they did clap for, themselves." Brooke, Democrats don't like this president, and they showed it. What's wrong with that?
Because traditionally the State of the Union is an opportunity for members of the U.S. government to show that they can behave like adults and to show the American public that they serve them, that they're not there just to engage in partisan politics. I think that was the essential theme of Trump's speech. America is great. Look where we have come since especially World War II. Look what we have done. Look what our grandparents fought and paid for with their own blood. Are we going to now be remembered for radicalism, a scary turn towards socialism, for this damaging partisan politics, or are we going to act like adults and do what's good for this country?
Jim, were they not acting like adults? What's your response to that? Were Democrats not showing respect for this event?
Boy, I sure wish former President Obama got some of this so-called support in years past. He's got to be chuckling at all of this. Again, Brooke is right. This is a solemn occasion, for better or for worse. It's kind of phony and kind of artificial. But again, I believe that this president has so debased the institution of the presidency and the Oval Office and politics itself, that he got the bare minimum out of it. And for someone like Lynn Cheney, of Congresswoman Cheney, to complain, I think is just too rich. So, again, and going back to your other question about investigations, the president drawing that line in the sand, that was a very important point. Can you imagine what former President Obama must have thought when seeing that, after Benghazi hearing, for instance? So, anyways.
Yeah, okay. Before the speech, in a private lunch with the news anchors, he called Vice President Joe Biden dumb, Chuck Schumer a nasty son of a bitch. Brooke, we just have 20 seconds left. What do you make of this talk before the speech started?
Well, I agree with Jim in the sense that the office of the President of the United States is one that should be held in great esteem, and whoever occupies this office should treat it with that respect. Although President Trump was elected because of his bluster, because of his bravado. That's what the American people want.
Okay. Brooke Goldstein and Jim Manley, thank you very much for coming on the Spin Room. Enjoyed having you on the show.